Another gentleman who I consider a hero is our guest speaker this morning, our keynote, if you will. And, you know, as many of us retirees tend to get a chance to laze around the house every once in a while, as my wife keeps complaining about. I was sitting around one day watching TV, scanning through the movie channels, and I ran across a little movie called The Music Within, a little Hollywood film. Turned out to be about a Vietnam veteran. It certainly piqued my interest. And I got to learn about the next speaker you're going to hear, Mr. Richard Pimentel. And his life story was really intriguing. He volunteered for the draft in 1967, and after basic and AIT at Fort Lewis, arrived in Vietnam in April of '68 and served as a mortarman with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade. And later with the 101st Airborne. All right. At Camp Eagle. Midway through his tour, a VC rocket slammed into his bunker near Phu Bai, and he all but lost his hearing. After Vietnam, he went to Portland State University in his hometown in Oregon. It was a difficult post-war readjustment, but one which he overcame. Soon he became active in the nascent disability rights movement, specializing in finding jobs for disabled Vietnam veterans. Good old DVOPs, for those of you who know what that acronym means. One of the early DVOPs. He held an important job in the federal government's pioneering disabled veterans outreach program. Then in the early 1980s, created what he called the Tilting at Windmills training program to help employers become more objective and effective in interviewing and working with people with disabilities. This program became one of the important building blocks in the passage of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. As I said, his life story was done by a movie called The Music Within. If you get a chance to see it, it comes up on the cable channels. Really try it. It's really a very interesting movie because it really talked not only about his problems with dealing with friends of his who were disabled and his own disabilities, but it also talked about the problems of returning Vietnam veterans, including, unfortunately, one of his colleagues who committed suicide. And really, I know that all of us have been through all of those things and will take the movie to heart. Today, he's one of the most sought-after consultants on disability rights and one of the nation's most renowned disability rights activists. I hereby give you your 2010 National Leadership Conference keynote speaker, Richard Pimentel.
68, 69, Vietnam, and Dow Chemical is not done killing me yet. I really don't have war stories in the war. I suspect that most of you have better war stories than I. My tour in Vietnam consisted of trying to live to see the next day, and then trying to live on that day to see the next day. My war story didn't start till I got home. But I think I ended up in Vietnam in similar ways that many of you might have. I was raised in Portland, Oregon. I was a poor kid, raised by my grandma. She had been on welfare so long she called it relief. We just didn't have much money. When I graduated from high school in 1966, I was admitted into a little private, commie, pinko, socialist, ultra-liberal, intellectually elitist private college in Portland, Oregon. They were so liberal when you dialed 911, you got the ACLU. I was the next to last person to be admitted, which meant I was like the second dumbest person in the school. And they were not about to give me a scholarship. So I was admitted to school, but I couldn't go. I couldn't afford it. But as you know, the government was running a program back then where you could trade service for a college education. It was called Vietnam. And when I got my acceptance letter to that, I went down to the induction center with 3 things. An overnight bag, new suit of clothes, and a bottle of urine from a friend of mine. I remember on the first one, we all peed in the sink and each one took a dip hoping one of us had something. My friend had diabetes. He was very popular during the war. We used to bring him $5 a Hershey bar and a thermos. And I think you'll appreciate this since it was a federal test. My urine passed. I'm saying, test it again. You don't want me. Taste it, it's sweet. You don't want me. They did. They sent me to Fort Lewis to become a soldier. And in the snow, in the winter, in the cold, at night, they had me guard Mount Rainier. From what? They said, don't go to sleep. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up. The mountain will be gone. I hated the cold. So I said something to my sergeant that I regretted for so long. I said, is there no place warm you can send me? This was a bad query on my part. And I ended up in Vietnam. They put me on a alert team. Not because I was qualified, but because I was there. The sergeant said, we have an opening on alert team. I said, there must be some mistake. I never went to recon school. He said, we'll put you on the team. If you're alive in 2 months, we'll send you to recon. I said, if I'm alive in 2 months, I don't need to go to recon school. Welcome to the Army. And we survived. Hue was still the prettiest city I'd ever seen. And then one day, we got back into the rear, and we just had a need for beer. Cold beer. And we knew where cold beer was. Cold beer was in the beer bunker. And we snuck in the beer bunker. 5 of us, we started drinking. And we drank for a few hours. And then while we were in the bunker, they dropped a rocket on us. What are the odds? What are the odds of surviving the tent offense and to be blown up in the beer bunker? It's like the Lou Gehrig story. Lou Gehrig goes to the doctor. The doctor says, Lou, I'm sorry. I got bad news. He goes, what? He goes, you got Lou Gehrig's disease. What are the odds? Anyone who's been in a bunker when a rocket's hit it, well, few of us have been in a bunker when a rocket hit it. Normally you're dead, you know that. But the beer bunker was the best built bunker in all of Vietnam. And it held. So there was an explosion on the outside, an implosion on the inside, air traveling at high velocities in a confined space, and you don't want to be there. Person in the worst part of the bunker had his eyes blown out of his head. Everyone else was made completely, totally deaf. I was the only one. I lost half of my hearing, came back with severe ringing in my ears, and had a traumatic brain injury. Didn't have a whole lot of survivable traumatic brain injuries in Vietnam, medicine wasn't good enough. Now, it's the injury du jour of Iraq and Afghanistan. I came back home. Now, no one should ever feel sorry. I didn't feel sorry because I was a poor kid. Now I'm a disabled Vietnam vet. As far as the Beatles are concerned, I got a ticket to ride. I go to any college I want to. All I need to do is talk to a rehab counselor from the Veterans Administration to send me to college. How hard could that be? I had been admitted to one of the hardest schools to get into in the entire West Coast. So I took my letter of acceptance, took my transcripts, went to the VA, said I want to go to college. The rehab counselor looked at me and said, I don't think I can approve a university level program for you. I said, why not? He said, because you're deaf. I said, what? These people at the VA have no sense of humor at all. I said, if I'm deaf, why are you talking to me, you moron? He said, well, you're not deaf. He said, if you're deaf, no problem. We just send you to deaf school and make a good deaf person out of you. But you're worse than deaf. I said, what's worse than deaf? He says, well, your hearing, you got no upper register hearing. You lost all the hearing in your upper register. But you got perfect hearing in the lower register. He said, you know what's in the upper register? I said, what? He said, well, that'd be the consonants, the beginnings and ends of the consonants. So all the consonants go sound the same to you. Your T, your B, your C, your D, your G, they all going to sound the same. He said, you know what's in the lower register? I said, what? Your vowels. All you're going to hear is vowels. A, E, I, O, U. But not Y. Not even sometime. I said, should I learn sign language? He said, hell, what you want to learn sign language for? He says, only the deaf speak sign language, they got nothing to say to you. I said, what do I do? He said, well, if you don't hear consonants and you hear vowels, you got two choices in your life. I said, what are they? He said, well, you can learn to read lips, or you can move to Hawaii. Who understood that? Who didn't understand that? The Hawaiian alphabet has about 16 letters in it. 12 of them are vowels. Koala, walla, alla, walla, boulevard. I hear Hawaiian, I just don't know what it means. I said, okay, I'll read lips. I'll learn to read lips. Send me to school. He said, I can't do it. You won't make it. I said, why? He said, it's not the hearing, it's the range. It's the brain injury. We got studies. People with range as severe as yours said, someday you're just going to go crazy. I said, I am? He said, yeah. We're going to put you through college, and then when you graduate, you'll be in some straitjacket in the VA hospital howling at the moon. And we'll just wasted all that good taxpayer money. He said, you won't be able to do any kind of work that has a system to it because you won't be able to keep it straight with the brain injury. You won't be able to read a book. I said, well, why can't I read a book? He said, well, because you read the first page, you got a short-term memory loss. What's going to happen is you forget what's on the first page, you get to the second page, you got to read the first page all over again. book you read is going to seem like the same book. I said, well, that hasn't been true till John Grissom started writing. He said, you're going to be foul-mouthed. I said, no shit. He said, you won't be able to have a relationship with a woman. I said, I have to be gay? What's the VA pay for something like that? Because I can tell you right now, if I gotta be gay, I gotta have a better clothing allowance. That stuff isn't cheap, I gotta tell you. He said, no, you're gonna go with women. You don't have any upper register here. You'll go to dinner and you'll be talking and they'll be talking and you'll be talking and they'll be talking. And what you gonna hear? Nothing. Because they got high voices. All you're gonna hear is ooh, oh, ee. I thought that was the point. He said, you're going to be paranoid. I said, I am? He said, trust me. I said, how can I trust you? And you'll be subject to sudden bouts of mindless violence. I said, I think I feel one coming right now. And I gave up. I was poor. I'd never even met anyone who had a degree. This man had a master's degree. I gave up. I said, maybe I shouldn't go to college. Maybe I shouldn't try. I'll just get a job. What kind of job am I going to get? I'm going to be incompetent. I'm going to be foul-mouthed. I'm going to be mentally ill. I'm going to be dangerous. What kind of job am I going to get? And he said, normally we get people like you jobs at the post office. You know, this explains a lot when you think about it. And at that point, I knew this man had nothing to say to me. I said, I don't need your voc rehab. Because I got the GI Bill. And I can do any damn fool thing I want to do with the GI Bill. I could go to jockey school. If I could get a horse big enough, I could go to jockey school. Maybe Budweiser would give me a horse. Because I had an ongoing relationship with Budweiser at the time. They might have done it. And then I said, well, what kind of degree do you got to do this? You don't seem to be doing much. He said, I have a master's degree in vocational rehabilitation. I said, I think I'll get one of those. And then I got mad. I said, I'm going to get one of those. And someday, I'm going to be in a position to fire you. I know that it sounds like talk. Interestingly enough, 20 years later, I was in a position to fire him. But I didn't. He said, did you become kinder, gentler? No. But I realized there's a man who works for the Veterans Administration. The most punishment I could give him was to leave him where he was. But I had to make sure he could do no more harm to a veteran. So I promoted him to administration. You can't do harm if you're not doing anything at all. Well, I went to college, and I learned to read lips. I became an expert lip reader. The VA wanted me to hang out with all the disabled veterans. We had to meet like once every 2 weeks. It was supposed to be therapeutic. We met at a little tavern across from Portland State called Sam's Hofbrau. It was therapeutic. We told war stories and drank beer. And I learned to read lips, and my life changed. I was in the cafeteria one day at a school. I saw a man. This wasn't a veteran. We will never be in a war so severe where we would ask this man to go to war. His name was Arthur Honeyman, and he had cerebral palsy. Serious cerebral palsy. His arms flailed about his head. His speech was unintelligible. His tongue fell out of his mouth like the lead singer in Kids. He was in a wheelchair, and we couldn't give him an electric wheelchair because he had no control. He had killed every domestic pet in the neighborhood. He couldn't push his wheelchair forward. He had to push it backwards with his foot. And there I was in the cafeteria, and here was Art. He was trying to get a Coca-Cola. Trying to get it open and put a straw in it. And he couldn't do it. And I'm looking around for someone to help him. There's no one to help him. And I thought, I guess it's up to me. I walked up and I said, "You look like a man with a Coke problem." That was a Coke problem in 1970. You couldn't get your Coke. I said, "Let me help you." I said, "Don't talk to me, I'm deaf." I said, "I can't understand you. No one can understand you. I certainly can't understand you. I read lips, but I can't read your lips. I'll just get seasick and throw up." I put the straw in his Coke and I turned around. I tried to get out, and he grabbed me. He wants to talk to me. I won't talk to him. But I did what every deaf person learns to do eventually. I decided to sit down and pretend to understand him, agree with everything he said, and then leave. I sat down. He started talking. And the heavens opened up. I could understand every word that he said. No one could understand Art. I understood Art. How? The deaf guy. Well, we found out many years later when they shot the movie. They brought me and they brought Art to Minneapolis and went to a place called the Starkey Hearing Labs. They make hearing aids. A lot of vets have them. And they did a audiological exam for me and took a picture of my hearing loss. And then they did an exam of his speech and did a speech just like my hearing. And they put them together on the computer. And they exactly matched. No one who had not been in an explosion like that, because that's the model for an explosion. It's like a ski slope. No one who had not been in an explosion like that could have ever understood Art. What I thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me was in fact the door to the opportunity that I did not know that I was supposed to enter. How many of us, in retrospect, look at the things that we just shook our heads about, and rather than give up, find out that within, not around, not under, not over, but within the adversity we face, lies the seeds to an equal or greater opportunity. If I had not gone to Vietnam, if I had not been in that explosion, I never would have understood Art. and Art became my friend. Art was the smartest man I ever met. His IQ was higher than my cholesterol level. And people would come to him and say, Art, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And Art would tell him, for about a half hour. And then they'd turn to me and say, well, what did he say? And I'd tell them. And they talk to me, but I'm deaf. So I turn to Art and say, well, what did he say? And Art would tell me, we're the damnedest pair you ever saw in your life. But I gotta tell you, they wouldn't let us into a movie. We veterans adopted Art. We loved Art. And Art, oh my gosh, the times. Remember the times? Remember the campuses? Oh my gosh. And they didn't have the cool hands like they have today. Now they got hands. You can like move them with your muscles. Someday you'll be able to move them with your mind. They just had hooks. Remember hooks? We used to unscrew his arm and use it as a roach clip. You haven't lived till you're in a circle with him and says, I'll pass the arm, man. We had one guy in here with a white phosphorus grenade. He didn't have a face anymore. And the American Legion was having their annual meeting in Portland, Oregon. And we finally said, oh, now we know where we belong. And we went down to the American Legion. We brought our medals. We brought our paperwork. And they wouldn't let us in the Hilton. They had police guards. Because they said we looked disreputable. And we talked our way in. And we got to the desk. We said we want to join. You know what they told us? We don't need you. We don't need you. We said we have medals. We don't need you. And we left. Veterans of foreign wars. Well, we didn't fight a foreign war because it wasn't declared war, so we didn't know we weren't anybody. And we realized, well, I realized, something that we all come to realize after a while. And you have come together now to realize it, but each of us had to do it individually before we had an organization. We realized that since no one was going to help us, we had to help ourselves. And since no one cared about us, we had to care about each other. You know, the one thing that every service person learns, no matter who you are, whether you're combat, whether you're Remington Raiders, you learn that you never leave a fallen comrade on the battlefield. What I realized, and what you know now, but it's something we had to learn, is you don't leave a fallen comrade on the battlefield, so why would you leave a fallen comrade when they have come home? It was Art's birthday. His sister sent him $10. He got the envelope open around 3 in the morning. And he called me. Say, how did he call you? What had switchboards back then? He just knocked over the phone and he'd go, Whenever the switchboard operator heard that noise, they just sent it to my room. I got all of Art's calls. I got a lot of calls from drunks. I got a few really good dates, but that's not what we're talking about. He said, I got $10 pancakes. I know what he wanted. He loved pancakes. He wanted me to go to his room and get him dressed. He can't get dressed on his own. He wanted me to carry his wheelchair out of the dorm because it was inaccessible. Wanted me to push his wheelchair to the pancake house. Wanted me to carry him into the pancake house, set him down, order food, feed him. And for that, he was going to buy me breakfast. Seemed like a good idea. And we did. And everything would have been fine. Except the waitress that was there had never seen Art or anyone like Art. And she came up and said the cruelest thing I'd ever heard. She came up to Art and looked at him, stood over him, and said, "You are the ugliest, most disgusting looking thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe you'd come to a place where people are trying to eat. You're going to make us sick. I can't believe you want me to bring you food and you're going to eat it. And I don't know how you're going to eat it, like some pig in a trough. I won't serve you. I thought people like you were supposed to die at birth." I didn't know what to think. I'd never heard anyone talk to Art this way. And I turned to Art. What's he going to say? Is he going to break down? What's he going to do? Well, I said Art was a genius, but I tell you he was an evil genius. And he turned to me, and this is what he said. Now, I have to quote him because this is a little right. He said, "Richard, why is that bitch talking to you that way?" He said, "You don't look any worse than you normally look, Richard." Lord knows I wanted to say this to you a long time, but you're my friend. I said, "She's not talking to me, she's talking to you." He said, "How can you be sure?" Talking to her. And it just pissed her off and she called the police. And the police came and the police said, "If you don't leave, you are going to go to jail." And then Art said something that changed my life. He said, "I want to go to jail. And Richard wants to go to jail too." And I'm thinking, no. I want to get a job with a big company. I don't want to be poor anymore. And back then, if you'd gone to jail, you couldn't get a job with a big company. You couldn't. Now you get a job with a big company, and then you go to jail. And I could have left. Cop gave me a chance to leave. Art was going to jail. Cop said, "You want to go to jail with him? You want to leave?" Thank God I had been in Vietnam. You don't leave a friend. And 3 things occurred to me, 2 of them fairly intellectual and 1 not so much. First thing that occurred to me is if they didn't want me to practice civil disobedience, why did they require me to read Thoreau? That's pretty intellectual. And the second one, and you know this one, my brothers and sisters. I didn't go to Vietnam to protect the rights of people I don't care about, to come back and find that the people I do care about don't have any rights. And I was not the first veteran to come home to find that out, and Vietnam was not the first war we came back from. The entire civil rights movement was started by the veterans coming back from World War II, having saved the world, to find out that they could not eat in their downtown diner. Okay, the third thing that occurred to me was, how the hell are they going to fingerprint ours? That's really got to be something I have to say. So I said, I want to go to jail! And they did. And they took us in. And they put us in a holding cell. And they gave us breakfast. Pancakes. And they took us in front of the judge. And the judge found us guilty. Of what? There was a law at that time called the Ugly Law. They were in about 23 cities in the United States. And there were laws that cities had about people who were crippled, maimed, deformed, or otherwise improper or disgusting objects being out on the public thoroughfare. 1972. And I'm thinking, that describes most of my friends. We got out of the court. Art starts laughing. I said, what's so funny, Honeyman? He said, oh, we got pancakes. I still got my $10. You want to do it again? I'm thinking, why not? Not like I'm going to get a job or anything. I mean, my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to a company and apply for a job, and then they're going to say, and have you ever been arrested? I'm going to have to say yes. And they're going to say, well, what are you arrested for? And I'll have to tell them, refusing to leave the International House of Pancakes. You know how hard it is for a fat guy to say something like that? What are they going to say? Was it buffet night? And we decided to change the law. But we needed friends. Art went and got all his friends who had, God knows what, cerebral palsy, MS, everything you can think of. And I started working with the disabled vets that I came back with. And we decided to change the law. We thought it would be easy, just change a little stupid law in Portland, Oregon. And we found out there were 23 of them all over the country. And then we found out there was only one way to change the law. And that was to make those laws unconstitutional. And the only way to make those laws unconstitutional was to help change America's attitude towards people with disabilities and veterans with disabilities, and to put together and pass the Americans with Disabilities Act. You know, it was really interesting when I first went over. They had like a party, and the people in favor of the war at the time told me I was going over to save America. I remember them telling me that. I'm not sure I did a good job saving America over there. But you know something? We came back. And we have been saving America ever since. I didn't realize what the disabilities. Back then, it was around 67%. If you were a Vietnam veteran on top of that, it was a lot higher, my friends, a lot higher. Because people didn't like people with disabilities and they were afraid to death of us. I did get a job. I was good. No one knew I was deaf. I read lips. I never told them. But we still met, all my friends, all my disabled veterans, we met. And 6 months after graduation, I was the only one who had a job. And a year after graduation, I was the only one who had a job. And one day when we came to meet, all the vets were there. And I was usually pretty prompt. Usually they were straggling, but they'd been there an hour ahead of time. I said, was the meeting early? They said, yeah. I said, you didn't tell me. He said, we purposely didn't tell you. I said, why? They said, we don't have a job. We can't get a job. The VA has no idea how to get us a job. So we had a meeting. And we've decided that one of us must quit his job. And then that person will have to get a job finding out how people get jobs. Then they'll have to quit that job and come and get us all jobs. I said, who would that be? They said, we voted for you. You lost 23-1. And I quit my job the next day. And I got a job with Snelling & Snelling, employment agency. And they taught me how to get people jobs. Well, not people with disabilities, how to get snot-nosed little graduates from Oregon and Oregon State jobs. But I learned how to do that. I worked for 90 days, figured that out, quit my job, moved my office into my home, went to Catholic Charities, wonderful organization, by the way, told them I needed 3 phone lines and a ramp, and I was going to help Vietnam vets, and we created one of the first drop-in centers in Portland, Oregon. And any vet who didn't have a job, you'd come in and we would get them a job. Now they had no money, so I had no money. They would bring me chicken and beer. I'm still carrying some of that around. But we figured out how to get people jobs, and we did. And after a couple years, one day I get a call from the head of voc rehab for the Department of Veterans Affairs. He said, we're doing a study about veterans in Portland. Some of these disabled vets are all getting jobs more than any other city. And we talked to them and they said, you got him a job? I said, yeah. And he said, would you please tell us something? I said, what? He said, how do you do that? As the head of rehab for DVA. And my answer changed my life. I said, how much money will you give me if I tell you? And I became a consultant. And I've not done a day's work since. When Jimmy Carter started the DVOP program, I moved out of my house and became one of the first DVOPs, and trained people in Region 10 because I was the only DVOP they could find who actually knew something about how to find people jobs. I wasn't a good state employee. They were always going to fire me as a state employee. I remember one day I came in and the manager met me and said, Pimentel, we have a problem with you. I said, what? He said, we had a citizen report you. I said, citizen? What am I? Apparently there was a state car parked in the parking lot of a topless bar in Portland, Oregon. And it was the state car you checked out. Is that true? I said, yes. Why was it parked in the parking lot of a topless bar? I said, because the parking lot's close to the door. What were you doing in there? I said, sir, to you it looks like a topless bar. But to me, it's a place of employment. Bouncers, dishwashers, ID checkers, managers, bartenders. I was looking for work for my veterans. I said, how many of your veterans want to work at a topless bar? I said, that would be all of them. And if I got a job, I would be a god to them. Well, I'll tell you a couple stories. It was never my intent to have a movie made about me. I give speeches. One day, a movie producer was in the audience. His wife was in the audience. And he said, this could be a movie. And I said, you're nuts. And he kept at me, and he wanted me to write 50 pages. And for the first 10 pages, my goal was not to become the hero of my own life. Well, that's a silly idea, because I realized after 3 pages that I was not the hero of my life. And then my goal for the next 20 pages was not to be the villain of my own life. But after 15 pages, I realized I was neither the hero, nor was I the villain of my own life. And that I was barely the protagonist. That my life story, my legacy, was not mine. My legacy was those people who believed in me, who helped me, and those people who touched me and taught me, and those people that I touched. So I wrote what I did of the movie to talk about the people I've known. Mike, the veteran who came back, lost his leg, drank about 2 cases of beer a day. He was a fierce advocate for veterans. Best job developer I'd ever seen in my life. Unfortunately, he would drink beer at the desk and yell 4-letter words on the phone to employers. And he died. All of us in this room have come back from Vietnam with a mic. You all know a mic. And every mic that we've ever known is now dead. How many mics are coming back from Iraq? How many mics are coming back from Afghanistan? There is no reason anymore for a single mic to die. A couple Veterans Days ago, I was asked to fly to Medford, Oregon. Anyone know Medford, Oregon? Know what's in Medford, Oregon? It's a 500-bed psychiatric hospital, and a great one. They've allowed the Unified Tribes in Oregon to put together a, what is it called? The sweat lodge. And they're having PTSD veterans go through that, and they're getting actual results from that. It's amazing. And when I was asked to come in there, I'm with my business partner, Milt, and we're flying into Medford, and I'm saying to myself, well, what do you think we're going to see? And he said, well, we're going to see a lot of veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, maybe. And I got there, and we were met by the wonderful staff there. And I realized right off that hospital was not full of veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. When I went to give the talk to the veterans, they got them out of the beds. They were Vietnam veterans. PTSD. veterans who had come back but had never come home. And I gave my talk, the best talk that I could give, but I felt so inadequate. And at the end of the talk, a vet came up to me. I mean, this is a big guy. I'm a big guy, but this is a big guy. Gray hair, ponytail, Harley Davidson jacket, gnarly hands, cane, big catcher's mitt of a handshake. I put my hand out. He said something that shook me to my core. He said, I could have been you. You came home and made it. You're famous. I read about you on the internet. I could have been you. You're smart? I said, yeah. I'm smarter. I was a lot smarter than you. You gave speeches in high school and college? I said, yeah. I did too. And I was more successful than you. You were a soldier. You came home with medals. I said, some. He said, come home with a silver star. Come home with 3 bronze stars. 2 of them for valor. I said, no. I did. I could have been you. But for a couple breaks, I could have been you. And I looked at him. And I thought to myself, I could have been you. No, I am you. But for a couple breaks. My brothers, my sisters, you are those breaks. You are the difference. And you often will never be thanked, and you often will never know the difference that you've made. You save lives, just as the sound of the blades of a Huey, for some strange reason, bring us peace. The sound of your voice brings veterans of your and the new generation hope. We went to Fort Hood to show the movement. Bad timing. It was when they announced that the tour was not going to be 12 months, but 18 months. But we showed the movie. Ron Livingston had played, he was there. He's a great guy. He's a big vet supporter. And we showed the movie, and the theater was full. And we're signing autographs, answering questions. And a captain got up, young man. He said, Mr. Pimentel, sir, he said, I know a little bit or read what you people went through when you came back. He said, I'm really sorry for that. He said, I'm going for my second tour here in about a month. He said, when I came back, it wasn't that way. When I came back, people got up out of first class and gave me their seat on the plane. I couldn't buy a beer in a bar if I were in uniform. He said, it's treated pretty good, really. He said, but I think it's changing. He said, America's a fickle place. A eventually, the lesson that we think we need to learn, sir, is that America's opinion of the war always eventually becomes their opinion of the warrior. He said in Oregon, they burnt a soldier in effigy to protest the war. I do not care what you think about this war, but don't burn a soldier in effigy because you don't like the war. If you don't like the war, burn a politician. Come to think of it, why effigy? And then he asked me the hardest question I've ever been asked. As Vietnam vets, you know, sometimes we get questions and a lot of times we don't want to answer them. Or we give a little throwaway answer, it doesn't mean anything. We all have a little stock of those, don't we? They asked me a question I couldn't duck. I had too much respect for this man to duck the question, but it was the hardest question anyone has ever asked me in my life. And I am 63 years old. He said, so when I get back, he said, if I come back with a brain injury, if I come back with traumatic brain injury or PTSD or missing a limb, he said, I know you'll be there to look out for me. I know you're doing training for employers. I know you're doing all this work, and thank you. He says, but here's my question. When I come back in 18 months, what if I came back to what you came back to? What if they're showing movies about atrocities? What if the tone of the war has gone bad? What if we're not seen as the heroes? What if now we're seen as the villains? He says, what do I say? What do I say if someone comes to me and asks me how many innocents I've killed? How many babies I have murdered? How many women I have raped? How many atrocities I have committed? What do I say? What do I say to them, sir? Put yourself in my place. Imagine that a young Army officer about ready to go to Afghanistan asks you that question. How do you reply? Well, then you know my dilemma now, don't you? And I thought, and then it came to me. I said, I'll tell you what you say. You tell that person that is a debt that has already been paid. That is a bill that has been discharged. That is no longer due. And if they don't understand that, you send them to me. Or you send them, and I know I used you not even knowing you, but I believe I have license to do it. You send them to any Vietnam veteran in America. And we will explain to them why that debt is no longer due. We will explain to them how it's been paid in full. And we can prove it. Do you know how we can prove it? We all kept the receipts. Right here. I haven't wanted to jump out of a plane for 40 years until last night, flying Delta from Atlanta to Orlando. It was the flight from hell. But something happened on that plane that I want to share with you. You know, I'm feeling sorry for myself sometimes. Not much, because I've had a really good life. And I've done really neat stuff, and I've got so much work I still have to do. We help with the ADA. We help with the new ADA. I leave here tonight, and I fly to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and I'm training all the new investigators for the EEOC on how to investigate discrimination for veterans with PTSD and traumatic brain injury. I mean, it's a good life, but you know something? I don't hear it. I got a ring in my ears. Sometimes my memory isn't good. Agent Orange has got me. I've got diabetes. I haven't felt anything in my feet for a long time. And I was feeling just a little down, just even thinking about talking to you. Feeling just this little touch of sorry for myself. Sitting on that plane. And out of the blue, out of the heaven, the answer was given to me. I was sitting next to this woman who was taking care of about an 8-year-old boy. Little pest of a creature. And I looked at that boy earlier in the flight. And then he wanted to get up and go to the bathroom. I'm too damn old to get up to let him go to the bathroom, and I did. And I'm thinking all these thoughts, ugh. And then he comes back out of the bathroom, and I see his shirt. He's really a pretty little boy. And his shirt has the words, "Make a wish," on it. And I realized this little boy's going to die. This little boy is going to Disneyland for Make-A-Wish. So many things he will never know. So many things he will never experience. And suddenly, my troubles seem so insignificant. No more than an inconvenience. We stand here today. We want to help Vietnam veterans, but we need to help all veterans. And I realized that we must draw the line. We must learn the lessons and keep them in mind for when we came back. And when we say never again, we must mean it. We have been given an opportunity to make sure that the young men and women who serve us now will not go what we went through. As I said before, we may have gone over there thinking that we were going to save the world. But we didn't start saving the world till we came back. I am so proud of you. I am so proud of what you do. You who realize the most valuable lesson of all. You do not leave a fallen comrade on the battlefield or on Main Street. Thank you very much.
Richard may not hear, but he sure as hell can talk. just want to give this little token, achievement medal, and a little certificate that goes along with that. I also talked to Richard beforehand, and he agreed, and so I'm going to make Richard a life member of VVA. Fancy gold bills, not the cheap gold bills.
Thank you.
Thank you. If that doesn't inspire the hell out of you, you're dead.